also want to thank all of you for inviting me today and being here. And it's quite a nice thing to see all my previous teachers back here after a long, long time. And I'm quite fortunate to be here to start with. And I also want to thank all of you for being a part of this informative session today. So I'm pretty sure that Belvin already talked about the opportunities in US and how you can navigate them, and Kavya will probably soon talk about how you can do it at the elite institutions in India like IISCs and ISS. So I have decided that today I will focus my talk on the opportunities in Europe, especially in Germany, because that's where I have my most experience in. And but even though I'm talking about Germany, of course, this applies to other European countries also. And yeah, and I hope that this would be informative for you. So I will just start sharing my screen. So if one of you can confirm if you can see this, I would be really thankful. So is this visible now?
Not yet, yeah, but it's coming, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, Pradeep, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Because now I cannot see all of you. I can only see my screen, so that's why. Yeah. Okay, so we will talk today about the PhD opportunities from a European perspective. So how it works in Europe and what are the criteria and how is it structured and so on. Now, when we look into the PhD programs across the world, so there are only a handful of destinations which are quite favorite for the Indian students, and obviously US and UK comes as the first because obviously of the language, followed by the fact that we are also quite familiar with the culture through media like films or series. Now, a typical PhD program in USL can last around 4 to 6 years. But one of the caveats with the US PhD system is that the beginning several years is devoted solely to or mainly to coursework, which is also understandable because the bachelor program in US is a 4-year degree. And to fill the gap of this master program of other countries, so they normally have to do some level of coursework in the beginning. And also US requires GRE subject as well as GRE general examination and an English language certificate like TOEFL as the minimum criteria to apply for the program. Now, Canada, on the other hand, is a little bit better, so it's more comparable to India. Now, the coursework is mainly focused on the first year alone, and afterwards you write a comprehensive examination. And if you pass this comprehensive examination, you can move on to do your research. Now, when we come to UK, the PhD program itself is quite well structured. So it's around 3 to 4 years and it's purely based on research. But unfortunately, most of the bursaries and scholarship which is available for in the UK institution are only for students of UK and EU. So now after the Brexit, only for the citizens of UK. And what that means is that so foreign students like those from India have to pay a high amount of tuition fee up to 16,000 euro per year. Now, I myself got selected into Imperial College London after my master's from the department, but I couldn't attend it because I was not able to get a complete scholarship where all this tuition fee and the living costs were covered. And another destination which is yet to be more popular is Australia. So Australian PhD is also more comparable to the UK one. So it's 3 to 4 years, and it just requires an IELTS certificate as the requirement for English language. So you don't need any standardized exams like GRE. But unfortunately, Australia also has a very high tuition fees for foreigners, which is subsidized for the citizens of Australia. But unfortunately, as a foreigner, you have to pay a high amount of tuition fee. But if you get any scholarship or any kind of funding, but this tuition fee is covered. Now, coming back to our today's topic, so Europe in general. So Europe in general is yet to be a favorite of the students from across the globe for PhD. And I think one of the main reasons is obviously due to the language. So Europe has Even though it's a small areas, it has a lot of different languages. And mostly, if you want to live in the country, you need to know the language. For example, if it's in Germany, you need to have a good level of German, and in Italy, Italian, and so on. But compared to the North American system, one of the great advantages is that you have like little to no coursework, and all your PhD system is devoted purely for research. Now, the time itself can vary according to which country and on which field you're working on. For example, Italy and France have more of a strict system where you have to complete the PhD in 3 years, where Germany it is more flexible. For example, in our university, inorganic department normally completes their PhD in 3 to 3.5 years, whereas organic chemistry completes it between 5 to 6 years. So it depends a bit on the subject you're working on. Now, even among Europe, why is Germany attractive? So compared to many other European countries, Germany put a lot of emphasis on basic science, so fundamental research, and they also give a lot of funding through the German Research Foundation and the European Research Council. Also, compared to other European countries, it's much more international. You can find a lot of people from other cultures here, and English is more accepted than countries like Spain or Italy. And you pay a very little tuition fees for your PhD program, so it's around €100 per semester. But already in this tuition fee, your all that public transportation is covered, and you can also get food at the cafeteria at a very low price. So even though you're paying it as a tuition fee, you get a lot of advantages out of it. And also, Germany has one of the most globally ranked institutes in the Times and the QS ranking after US and UK, like the Max Planck Institute and the Fraunhofer and the Leibniz Institute, which are quite popular for high-end research. Now, obviously, Germany is known for its technological advance, so that's why in any area of research which you go in, including chemistry, you can see that the infrastructure, especially in terms of instruments, is on a very high level, which is again advantageous when you do a PhD here. And not only that, Germany as a country is also very welcoming to the foreigners. For example, if you have a degree from Germany, you have special visas to work here afterwards. And also, it has one of the best healthcare system and the social security system in the entire world. Now, when we consider the PhD system in Germany, it's mainly categorized into two. Most of the people, around 80 to 90% of the people, do something called individual doctorates, and that's what I also did for my PhD. So this is the most traditional way, and it's the PhD which we know also from India. So you apply directly to one professor, and you also work under this one professor for the entire duration. And you have 0 seminars or coursework you need to attend, or you need to pass the exam. And you also have a high level of flexibility on the terms of topic. For example, you start with a topic. If it doesn't work out, you have the flexibility to shift into another topic. And also you can mold your project according to what you like. For example, even though our group was more focused on organic chemistry, I was interested in the physical chemistry aspect of it, and I took my project towards that side, even though that was not done in our group before. Now, the structured doctoral program, on the other hand, so we normally call it as graduate schools in Germany. This is a recent development, and it's actually only offered in some subject areas. For example, in our chemistry department, it was only offered in bioradical research, and in the biology department, there was also one for protein chemistry. And one of the main difference is that normally you are under a team of supervisors. It can either be in the same university, or it can even be at different universities. And you also don't apply directly to one professor, but rather to the institute. And several people then decides upon your application. So also your interview process will be with several people, and it's always decided as a team rather than a professor directly, as in the individual doctorate program. Now, structured doctoral program has seminars and coursework. So in some programs, it is compulsory to attend them, and you have to pass some exam. And in some others, you only need to attend them. So it's on a voluntary basis, whereas you don't need to write any exams to do your PhD. And one of the advantages of structured doctoral program is that you have more support and guidance from a team of supervisor, whereas for an individual doctorate, you are required to be highly independent and you need to take responsibility of the whole project by yourself. But one of the problems with the structured doctoral program is the opposite of the advantages of individual doctorates. That is, you don't have much flexibility with the topic. Since these graduate schools or structured programs are always offered for a particular subject, you always have to fit your topic in this subject and you cannot move much around that. Now, in Germany, you can do the PhD at the university, at a research institute, or in the industry. And the most popular one is always at the university. But it doesn't matter where you do your PhD, the degree itself is always awarded by a university, like in India. So for example, before the ACSIR was formed, all our CSIR labs, including NIST, the degree was awarded either by the University of Kerala or CUSAT. So it's a system which is similar to that. Now, the industrial PhD, while it is yet to be popular in other countries, it's quite accepted in Germany. Germany has a lot of great chemical industry like BASF and Merck, which is one of the biggest chemical companies in the world. And if your plan is afterwards to go into the industry, then PhD in the industry would be a very good fit for you. Now, the question obviously we are asking always is how to get funded for PhD. Is it funded? So normally, if you are accepted into any PhD program in Germany, it is always funded. It can either be funded directly by the project grant of your professor or from the university, or it can be funded outside in terms of some individual scholarships like the DAD. Now, from the institute or the professor, you can get the money as a stipend, so which is more like a scholarship, or you can also get it as an employment contract. So in Germany, most of the times, a PhD student is not considered as a student, but rather as an employee. And this also has several advantages because the university pays half of your health insurance fee. They also pay for your unemployment benefits and so on. So I had an employment contract with the university rather than a stipend, and I also had a lot of advantages from it afterwards. And of course, the question is how much do you get? So the average income can vary a bit according to where you do your PhD, because for example, living cost in Munich and Berlin is very high compared to smaller cities like Bonn or Wurzburg. But generally, you get around 1,200 euro per month. And this can be a little bit low in the beginning, so around 1,100, and can be higher towards the end of your PhD, even up to 1,400 euros. So the other option would be to apply for some individual scholarship. For example, one of the professor is ready to accept you, but he doesn't have money to fund you directly. So you can always apply for some of the individual scholarships which are offered for students who want to study in Germany. And the most important and the famous among them is the DAD, which stands for Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, or German Academic Exchange Service. And this DAD has a lot of programs for students from developing countries, including India, and it has an extensive scholarship database. So you can go into their website and find a lot of information. But so that is one of the most prominent suppliers of scholarship for students who are interested to do their studies in Germany. Now, another way to fund your fellowship is Marie Curie fellowships. Now, Marie Curie has this individual fellowships for postdoc program where you apply for this fellowship, and it doesn't matter which institute you go to or which professor you go to. If your CV is good enough and if your proposal is good enough, you get the fellowship. But for PhD, Marie Curie doesn't have so much direct fellowship. But what it rather have is something called as a Marie Curie ITN fellowship. So what this means is that there is this particular grant which is available to a group of institutes, and you have to apply to this institute to get this fellowship directly. Now, when we talk about other European countries, they also have some nice fellowship programs. So for UK, there are the most popular ones like Commonwealth Fellowship, Chevening Fellowship, and Felix Scholarship. And for France, something which is equivalent to the DAD programs is the Eiffel Scholarship Program for Excellence. And for Switzerland, something which is directly from the government is called as the Swiss Government Excellence Scholarship. Now, you can find a lot of information about all the scholarship available in Europe as well as in other countries from this great website, so wemakescholars.com. So it's a wonderful platform where you can filter according to which subject you study or which program, master or PhD or postdoc you study, and also according to different countries you want to go to. And you get an extensive list of all these scholarships there. Now, obviously, how do you find a PhD position in Germany or in other European countries? So the most popular way you can do is you can go to the home pages of the professors on which the subject you are interested in at the university or at institutes like Max Planck, and you can directly email the professor if they have a position available. But on the other hand, all the PhD positions which are available is normally published on different databases. And one of the best databases which I have found myself is the Euraccess platform. So this is not just for Germany, but it is for the whole Europe. And in Euraccess, you can find all the PhD and the postdoc programs available in science as well as in other subjects. And you can also filter according to the different countries you want to go through. Now, for Germany itself, there are some specific platforms like the DAD database or the Higher Education Compass, as well as the German research institutions or the GERIT platform. Now, so we don't usually expect that the PhD program is something which is advertised on job websites. But since most of the PhD programs in Germany is funded by employment contracts, they are always advertised also on platforms like LinkedIn and Sync. So this is also somewhere where you can find a lot of PhD positions which are currently open. Now, how does the whole application process in Germany works? So if you decide to do an individual doctorate like me, so what your first step would always be to email the professor directly with your CV as well as a well-constructed email. So I will go into detail in that a little bit and ask him or her whether there is any current open positions available. But on the other hand, if you are interested in structured doctorates, which is the most common form of doctorates offered by Max Planck, for example, you apply directly through the website where you upload your CV, your transcripts, and your certificates. But normally, when you apply directly to the professor, you only need to upload your CV, and at the later stages, you need to provide the transcripts of your BSc and MSc marks. Now, normally, this is always followed by an interview. So in the individual doctorate program, it's only the professor who is interviewing you. Whereas if you're applying for a structured doctorate program, it can be like a few of the professors who belong to this consortium who is interviewing for this admission. Now, in some rare cases, after the interview, you may also be asked to write a research proposal. So this was with my case. After my interview, my professor asked me to write a research proposal on the subject which he's working on. Now, this is mainly to see whether you can have new ideas or bring new ideas to the group, and also to check how is your writing in English in general. So now, if the professor and the institute agrees to take you, the next is more like a formality. So the university normally has this enrollment program where they check if our master's is equivalent to the German master. So you just have to upload your certificates and transcripts, and they do the rest of it. And obviously, the final process of the whole application process is applying for a visa. Now, as you have probably imagined, I didn't talk about any language certificates like IELTS or TOEFL until now, because for the admission process itself, you are not required to submit any IELTS or TOEFL certificate. But for example, if you are applying for a visa from India, they generally ask a language certificate either in English or in German, and normally you have to submit an IELTS certificate for that. But there are also some ways where you can avoid this. Now, I want to go a little bit more into detail about constructing a CV for applying in Europe, as well as how you can write the email, because this is the first impression you're giving to the professor, and probably sometimes the only impression. So you need to be quite particular about some things while constructing your CV, as well as your email which you write. Now, the main kind of CV which is popular all among the world is the American CV. And American CV differentiates a little bit from the European CV in some characteristics. For example, normally it is a detailed CV, and it's also several pages. Whereas in the European CV should never be more than 2 pages, and it should be as concise as possible. So you never write whole sentences in a European CV, but rather you only write the keywords. And also we call it as a tabular CV because it's constructed more or less in a table form. And and also another difference which you can find among the American CV and the European CV is that American CV doesn't need you to put any photo. So this I personally found is a very good thing, because the reason why American universities don't want you to put a photo is because then this can lead to discrimination based on your color or your race or your gender, and they want to avoid that. So unfortunately, Europe is yet to catch up with this, and you still have to put a photo on your CV. But one thing you have to be careful is that it always has to be a professional photo. So no photos taken with a smartphone, and absolutely no selfies. So the European CV format is called a special name. It's normally called Europass CV, and you can actually construct a Europass CV very easily on this website. So it's called europa.eu, and there you can just input your details like, okay, where you did your master's and bachelor, from which year to which year, and in the end you get a final PDF, something like this. Now, Europa's CV is accepted throughout the Europe, and there is absolutely no problem if you're applying with that to Italy or to Germany. But based on the countries itself, there are some slight differences in the CV structure. For example, Germany wants your CV to be as boring as possible. So there should be no colors, and it should be only black and white. Whereas Italy, for example, is more accepted towards a colorful CV. So what you should always do whenever you're applying to a country is to Google. For example, if I'm applying to Germany, so German PhD CV example, and you can find a ton of CVs which fits into this criteria, mostly in German, and then you can also construct your CV according to that. Now, coming to the email part, so I would say that the email is even more important than your CV, because this can make or break your application. And you provide a lot of information in this email which you can never put in your CV, where you only have the details of, okay, which program you studied or which internships you had. Now, while constructing email, there are some aspects which are, especially as Indian students, we have to consider. Some practices which we commonly use in India, which is absolutely a no-go in other countries, especially in Europe. So first and foremost, you should never mass email anybody. That means that you just write a general email and send it to 50 professors. So this is an absolute no-go. They can easily detect from the first look itself is that you have sent it to a lot of people, and they wouldn't even bother to reply to you at all. So what you always have to do is to tailor your email according to each professor and according to each subject you are sending it to. So I have even seen emails which came to our group, which comes from a physics background, whereas we don't do anything to do with physics in general at all. So this is a result of the mass emailing. So please make sure that you're familiar with the research of the professor before and tailor your email accordingly. Second, please do not write several pages of email. Nobody has time to read through all of these things, because they are getting almost 20 to 30 such emails asking for a PhD or postdoc position per day. So you have to be as precise as possible and as concise as possible. So it should never be more than 3 or maximum 4 paragraphs. And also when you're applying for individual doctorates, so you only need to attach your CV in your first email, because you don't need to attach the transcripts or the mark or the certificates, because this is something which comes at the later stage of the application process. Now, another thing is that I think Belvin also mentioned it a little bit while I joined. You need to have a professional email ID. So absolutely no yolo123@gmail.com. You need to have your surname and your first name. So it would be very ideal if you have an educational email ID with your institute name on it. But this is something which is still yet to be popular in Kerala and in India in general. So you can still use your Gmail or Yahoo, but please make sure that you have a very professional email ID. Now, coming to the body of the email, so first you start with the subject. So normally, consider that I get an email, 2 emails, and one it is stated application for PhD, and in the other application for PhD in a topic which I am currently working on. So obviously, I am more inclined to open the second email rather than the first. So I always suggest you to state a precise topic in the subject. So nothing more like, okay, application for PhD in organic synthesis or application for PhD in physical chemistry, but it rather has to be a very precise topic which the group is currently working on. And the most important taboo for Indian students is absolutely no dear sir or ma'am. So I also, whenever I'm writing in India, of course, I also write it because this is a more humble form. But anywhere outside of India, this is not accepted. The main reason for is that because it kind of means that you're probably sending this to a lot of people and not even bother to look up the name of the professor. So never write dear sir or ma'am. So it should always start with either dear professor followed by the surname of the professor, or dear professor, the whole name. So for example, let's say Professor John Doe. So you can either write dear Professor Doe or dear Professor John Doe, but never with the first name only. So never dear Professor Joe. Okay. So now we come to the body of the email. So normally I know that nobody goes so much into detail with the email, but it is sometimes hard to get more information about this unless you have actually gone through this process. So that's why I have decided today I will give also a little bit more attention towards this. So in the beginning, you always start with introducing yourself. That is what you're doing or where you're currently. And you should also include then how you came across the work of the professor. For example, just as a very general example, you can say, okay, I'm currently working in the last semester of my master's studies at the Department of Chemistry, University of Kerala. And during my master thesis in the field of blah, blah, I came across your work on something. So this is always a good opening line. Now, in paragraph 2, you need to write about the research experience which you have in your master thesis or on the internships which you have done. Now, while writing your research experience, it is also important that you somehow connect this research experience with the research field of the professor. So consider that I have done an internship where I did organic synthesis, as well as where I did some quantum chemical calculations of the molecules which I synthesized. Now, I am applying for a PhD position in computational chemistry, so they are not much interested in what kind of reactions I can do in the lab, but they are rather interested in what techniques of computational chemistry I have already used. So I should be more talking about the computational chemistry experience rather than the other research experiences which I have. Now, the third paragraph, I would say, is the most important paragraph of your whole email, because based upon this, normally they decide whether you are a candidate who separates from other common emails they get every day. Now, this is the paragraph where you would state on which topics in his or her lab you are interested in, and if possible, or it is highly recommended that you should always suggest some ideas which is associated with their research topic. Now, this is something which from my own application, so you are not really needed to understand the science part of it. You just need to know the structure of how it's normally written. For example, I can write in your group, I am mainly interested in contributing to the development of transient peptide hydrogels and the fuel-driven approaches for their mechanistic control. So as you can see, I didn't state a general topic like physical chemistry or inorganic chemistry, but rather I stated precisely what the group is currently doing. And next, I am stating what I want to work on in these topics. So, for example, an internal feedback system that regulates transient pH states can be used to impart a bias of self-assembly mechanism as well as morphology on moieties with two interacting sites. Now, this is the part where I am suggesting my own idea to contribute to the research which they are doing. Now, I know from my own experience that as a master student, it is not that easy to come up with original ideas and to provide so many new proposals. But this is something which comes with practice. So when you read more about a topic, you also get more ideas. And I can assure you that once you're in your PhD and you start doing a research on your topic, you will also be more into the groove and get a lot of ideas on the thing which you're doing. So one of the way you can cultivate getting more ideas is just to read more and more papers on a field which you want to work on. Now, one thing which can always be advantageous for you is to also attach a research proposal, like detailing which all techniques you can use and what you want to do, rather than just stating in one or two sentences the general idea. But there is a problem with that, obviously, because you probably spend weeks or months writing a research proposal and you send it to a professor only to get a reply that, oh, I don't have any funding right now. So you waste a lot of time. Now, I would still suggest that if you can do a research proposal, this is the best thing to do. But if you cannot do that, or if you think that that takes a lot of time, what you can rather do is just to state the general idea like this. And in the end, you suggest that you can write a detailed research proposal if he or she is interested in this topic. For example, you can write, I would be glad to write a detailed proposal if this topic aligns with your current research interests. Now, finally, followed by this, there is always the closing remarks where you say, thanks for your consideration and I look forward to hearing from you. So the normal stuff followed by best regards or warm regards. So normally on an email is always semi-formal, so you don't write yours faithfully or yours sincerely. So this is only for official letters. So for email, it is always advised to go for something that is a more semi-formal, like best regards or warm regards. Now, once they are interested in your application, what comes next is obviously the interview part. Now, what you have to think about is that the interviews in Germany in particular is not at all intended to test how much knowledge in the subject you have, because they already can see this on the marks which you obtained in your bachelor and master program. But rather, they want to see how is your research aptitude. Are you made for research? And whether you can also fit into the team which they currently have. So you get a lot of behavioral questions like, okay, tell about a time when you had problems in your research and how you tackled it, or tell me about the important challenges which you came across while doing a master thesis or a particular internship. So you can expect some such kinds of behavioral question. Now, on the subject part, you are not required to know some random part aspect about, let's say, a reaction mechanism or Schrodinger equation, but you are required to know all the research which you have done completely thoroughly. For example, if you have done an internship or if you're currently doing a master project, you need to know which techniques you're doing, what is the principle behind these techniques, and what is the other works which in general is going on in this field right now. So you need to know the project through and through. Now, you also need to familiarize yourself with the technology or the methods which are currently used in the lab. So you can just go through their papers and familiarize yourself, okay, whether you're using some spectroscopic techniques or microscopic techniques. So you should also be able to have a general idea about the such techniques which they are currently using. And also for a PhD interview, it's good to have some ideas or suggestions about what you can do. So if you already write a research proposal or if you have already sent it in your email, this is already easy. You just need to learn a little bit more about the ideas which you have proposed and should be able to defend it in case questions about it comes up. Now, Glassdoor is a wonderful website where you can find a lot of interview questions. So this is not just for PhD or in Germany, it's for the whole world, and it's also for every type of job which you can imagine. But you can filter the interview questions for PhD in Germany, and you can have a feel of what kind of questions which is normally asked. Now, finally, how you can enhance your chances to be accepted into a PhD program in Germany or in Europe in general. Now, you have to keep in mind that every single student who applied for this PhD program probably has good marks in bachelor and master, and they probably also have done a master thesis where they worked on 6 months for a particular topic. So it's very important that you set yourself apart from these other candidates. And one of the things which you can do is to gain as much research experience as possible. Now, in India and also in Kerala, recently, so such kind of summer internships are getting more and more accepted. So there are several programs or scholarships which fund such internships. Now, if you're applying for a PhD in internship, it's always great or absolute best if you have done an internship in Germany already during your master program. For example, DAD-WISE is an internship program which supports Indian master students to do internship in Germany. And there are also a lot of internships which is directly by the institute, like the Max Planck Institute or the European Molecular Biology Laboratory at Heidelberg and such kinds of institutes. So you can just go into their website and find a lot about this funding opportunity. Now, I know personally a lot of international PhD students who are in my university. So they have done some form of internships already in Germany, and this has greatly like advanced their application for their PhD. Now, if you are not possible to do the Germany in or in other countries, it's not bad. I also didn't do anything outside of India, but there are also a lot of programs which is available for Indian students. And the most popular among them is absolutely the Summer Research Fellowship by the Indian Academy of Sciences. So I also got it while I was doing my first year master's at the department, and I did my internship in Punjab, in the Guru Nanak University in Punjab. And this definitely helped my application because it was nearly on the same field as where I did my PhD on. Now, the other institutions in India, like the IISc, IISER, including the IISER Trivandrum and the JNCSR at Bangalore, and different IITs also offer their institutional internship program where they support you for around 2 months to do an internship there. Now, if you're interested in doing an internship at the CSIR labs, including the NIST in Trivandrum, then there is a special program called APJ Abdul Kalam Summer Training Program where you can apply to, and you will be able to do an internship at the different CSIR labs across India. Now, consider that none of this works out. I mean, for example, it is possible that you don't get an actual summer break, the exams in between, and you don't have enough time to go to another place. One thing which you can still do is to ask the teachers or professors at your department whether you can work on a project either in the evenings or in the weekends. Now, obviously, it is not always possible for everybody to take you because of time or because of place, but if this opportunity arises, it can also increase your chances, despite the fact that you haven't done any internships even inside India or outside India. Now, generally, the publications during the master or the bachelor program is lesser, but it always is a great chance for your application if you already have some publications during your undergraduate program. So I didn't have any publications during my master's or bachelor, so it's not a must, but it can definitely help your application. For example, in ISA, for example, they have a lot of training programs and internships right from their second year of bachelor's, so they get a lot of chance to work on a project for a longer time, and most of the students already has some publications when they finish their masters, and this always helps them to apply to outside of India. So this is not a must, but if you can have a publication during your undergraduate degree, it will be very beneficial for your application. Now, another aspect which can separate your application from the other students is different types of awards and scholarships which you can get. For example, in India, there are a lot of scholarships by the Department of Science and Technology, as well as the Ministry of Higher Education, like the Inspire Scholarship, the Central Sector Scholarship, the One Girl Child Scholarship. So if you have the scholarships already in your repertoire, then it's always quite helpful and for your application. And Jason ma'am in the beginning mentioned a bit about my experience at the Lindor Nobel Laureate meeting in Germany. So it was definitely a wonderful opportunity to represent India and to go there. So it was for 2 weeks. So in the first week, we had this conference with the Nobel laureates in chemistry, and in the second week, we were able to visit different institutions, including Max Planck's and famous universities across Germany, and to know their research quite closely. So this is a wonderful opportunity, and I would also suggest you to apply for this if you are interested in that. So such kinds of awards and scholarships can always set you apart from other students. Now, probably you're also wondering, so what about the marks in bachelor and master? Now, this is a must. So you need to have some good level of marks in your bachelor and master, and you're also expected to have it consistently. But let's say that if you have it, for example, at bachelor a little bit low, it's not too bad. There are ways through which you can overcome this, and that is through getting as much research experience as possible. So I would always suggest you to go for the highest marks, because a lot of universities have some cutoff levels. But don't worry if you, for example, already got some a little bit lesser marks in your bachelor's or in your first semesters of master. There's still chance of making up through it by having some publications or having some research experience. So that was a very general overview of how you can do your research in Germany as well as in other countries in Europe. So I would like to conclude it here. Now, I would be very glad to hear if you have any questions. So I didn't talk much about how the actual life is abroad here. So where you need to hone a lot of your skills outside of research. For example, you need to have independence in your life as well as in your lab. You might deal with imposter syndrome in your PhD, and you have to overcome that. There is always a culture shock. We always hear about it, but you don't realize how big it is unless you actually face it. And but despite of some challenges which you can face in doing a PhD or studies in general abroad, it's always one of the best opportunities for your career, because you can completely extend your vistas to go into new fields or to new chances by doing a PhD abroad, and you can also grow a lot in your as a person while you are staying in another country and leading your life and managing your life daily. So from my own experience, I can say that there was definitely some challenging aspect, but it rounded me as a person, and it also rounded my research experience in chemistry a lot, and I would suggest all of you to do this at least once in your life. So with this, I would like to thank you all for being here for this around 40 minutes now, and I would be glad to take any questions which you have. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you for the very informative talk. Yeah, students, the participants, if you want to clarify something, please interact with Dr. Pradeep. Questions ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ചോദിക്കാം.
നമ്മുടെ കുട്ടികളൊക്കെ സൈലന്റ് മോഡിലാണെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു. പ്രദീപ്, so nice to hear you.
Thank you, Anima. I'm also so nice to see you again after a long time.
Actually, we have 5 boys now. I think you are the only boy in your batch, or 2 boys?
No, Vishak was also there.
Vishak,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we were 2. But it's nice to hear that there are a lot of books now. Yeah.
Pradeep, actually, I have a doubt. Like, what is the opportunities if you want to come back to India and get some positions like academic position? Because you said you have this individual doctorate program, so there no coursework, right?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering whether we will get equalization here. Is there any problem in getting a career job here after coming back?
No, because I know also from some of the seniors who have did their PhD and further also postdoc in Germany, so they went back and they are in, for example, at ISAM Mohali and also at IIT Bombay. So there is no problem in accepting the PhD degree back in India. Actually, there is also some advantage when you're doing PhD abroad. So you know this rule that if you're doing at the top 500 institutions in the world, you don't need a CSIR net for your faculty positions in India. So this is even an advantage if you have a PhD from abroad. But obviously it has to be from the top 500 institutions over the world. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, Kavya.
Sir, can you tell us about the opportunities regarding how a research scholar in India can have like a student exchange program or something in Germany?
Kavya, I believe you already started your PhD, right?
I'm yet to begin, sir.
Okay, but no problem, because that has this very special program for Indian students who are already or who are on their PhD program, where you can even spend up to 1 year in Germany at a related group. So it's called a DAD RISE program. So even from the NIST, Anima probably knows it, a lot of students have gone to Germany using this DAD RISE program. And this is an excellent opportunity to have some experience in Germany while already doing the PhD in India. But so you, as I already mentioned, you can also do some internships as a master's student under different programs. So there are a lot of programs which are offered by the DAD or by the institutes directly if you are interested in doing either a 2-month internship or even like a partial PhD in Germany up to 1 year. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sunisa, I'm not hearing. Sorry.
Okay, Pradeep. Nice to see you. Very nice talk. Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Okay. So I have a basic question. So basically, you have done your PhD from a very prestigious group of Professor Frank Wuthner. So my question is, how an Indian student, an Indian applicant, can get the attention of such a well-renowned professor who is very busy? Whether a well-constructed email is enough for that?
I would say that normally most of these famous professors are rather interested in taking the people who have already worked on their topic. So since I worked in supramolecular chemistry during my internship and also my master's thesis, so that was one of the main reasons why I was even invited for an interview, because I know several other people who even had quite good CVs and opportunities, but they were not invited simply because their research field was a little bit different. So a lot of famous professors like Meyer and Wagner generally want to take people who have some experience in their field, because that would mean that they will integrate into the group faster. So if you want to go into such professor, it would be beneficial if you do something like an internship or a master thesis in the field. Yeah, and obviously some research proposal always helps.
Okay. So anyway, they'll have to get notice of us before seeing the research proposal. That's why. So a good email will be enough, right?
Yes, absolutely. So email is always the first impression which you can make, and if you have a well-constructed email, they would definitely get back to you.
Okay, thank you, Pradeep. Nice to see you.
Thank you, sir.
So Pradeep, is it after contacting the professor that we go for the scholarships, look on for the Marie Curie or that?
Yes, exactly. Oh, I forgot to mention that. So you, before applying to a DAD program or a Marie Curie program, you always have to contact the professor first, and they have to agree to take you. So consider that I contacted somebody, they are interested in taking me, but as of now, they don't have any funds to offer. So I can tell them that, okay, we can write a proposal together and apply for a DAD program. So it's always after contacting the professor first.
So they will help you in preparing the proposal also, right?
Yes. So obviously, the main thing has to come from you. They are not going to write a proposal for us, because I think that is sometimes the practice in a lot of countries. But in Germany, you are supposed to be a lot independent in that. So you have to write some proposal. Sometimes what they do is they give you a broad topic and you write a proposal, or sometimes you already suggest from yourself some ideas and you write it, and they correct it, and they give you some suggestions of what can be made better.